Okay, recording is on.
Mhm.
Welcome to the second episode of the Spectacular Entrepreneur Show, and we are really happy to have you here today. In case you did not join us on the very first show, my name is Nanette Polito, and I am a franchisee owner of Ascentive here in the greater Cincinnati area. And the purpose of our show is to really help entrepreneurs. We've been asking you, where do you struggle? What do you need help with? And we're coming up with topics for you. And these are the topics that we're going to be covering over the next few months so that they are your topics. They're not our topics. My name again is Nanette Polito, and I have with me today Mike Macedonio and Eddie Esposito. And Mike Macedonio is a best-selling author, presenter, and entrepreneur, and he has many years of experience, and you're going to hear some of his stories today. And Eddie Esposito is an international expert on relationship development. So you couldn't have two better guys here helping us with our topics and what we want to discuss. And our topic today is, do you feel like you're working your butt off and yet you're standing still? Are you putting a lot of energy in, but you're not getting where you want to go? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so with that, I am going to throw it over to Mike and Eddie. So Mike, I know you're going to take it first.
Sure. Hello, Annette. Thank you for setting us up here today. Hello, Eddie. Welcome back to New Orleans. I'm coming from Sonoma County, California. So hello, everyone out there. Today's topic is something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, both Annette, Eddie, and myself. Working hard and not getting anywhere, or working way too hard to make way too little could also be the scenario. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is, are we confusing activities with accomplishments? Are we staying busy, we're getting busy, we're creating habits to be busy, but not really doing the things we need to do to move our business forward? Okay? So that's the first thing I'd like to explore is, what are we doing and why are we doing it while we're doing it? Eddie, your comments on this?
Well, that's a good point. The activity, it's easy to be busy. That's one thing we can delude ourselves is that we're doing a lot of things, but if we don't actually know what they apply to or where we're going to go with those, that's when we start getting into problems with working your butt off and going nowhere, because it might not be what the business needs at that minute.
I have a personal history of doing that to myself. When I first started off as an entrepreneur, I came to the table with two skills. I knew how to work hard, and I knew how to work a lot. And I would say I probably excelled at both. There was a side talent I also had. That was I could stretch a dollar around the block 3 times, and I really needed to. I was working 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And of course, you hear that from most entrepreneurs, but I literally had in my calendar from February to October without a day off, without a holiday, working every day as much as 14 hours a day. And at the end of the day, I would come home and show my small children the pinnacle of mediocrity. The pinnacle of mediocrity means I had a very small home, and now I had the chores of cutting the lawn, shoveling the driveway, and changing the oil in my 10-year-old Nissan Stanza with 200,000 miles. And so what changed? It really became an effort to stop working a lot and feel like I'm getting somewhere and start working smarter. And that meant, in one case, that start divesting some of the things that I was doing. I was literally hustling 4 different businesses just to make a living. And what I found was cutting back and getting more focused allowed me to grow the businesses like Referral Institute and Ascentive, okay, to a point where I wasn't working my butt off and getting nowhere. And we'll talk about a few of those ways that it happened on this webinar today. Eddie, I know you also had an experience. We have a shared experience in that we both came from the restaurant industry. What was your story?
Very similar. I would say that I started with working in private aircraft, and I was traveling all over the world, and the companies that I work for, the economic cycles go up and down. The first thing they sell off are their airplanes. And so I found myself in a spot where I wasn't flying around with them anymore, that I needed to find another way to make some money. And I was an expert in that spot, in that field, in that because it's very different than regular catering, for example. And I knew how to do it, and I spoke their language, and I was uniquely qualified, I thought. And so I started a private aircraft catering company here in New Orleans. And there are, I believe, there were at the time anyway, 6 places where those planes came in, and I ended up getting all 6 of them. And so I had already maxed out market share, which was pretty good, by the way. But I also now put myself in a position where it was all totally dependent on me. So like you said, at the end of the day, here I am, I'm doing all this crazy work, and it kind of started out in my house originally. And, you talk about the pinnacles of mediocrity, when I had exchange students at the time, when they come home and they see a refrigerator full of food and say, don't touch anything, you can't touch anything. They're like, there's nothing there for. They're like, what is this all for? And at the time it was beepers are going off while I'm in the movie with my wife, and it was great because it was really busy and a lot of things were happening, and it was miserable because I was the only one that could do it, and I kind of set it up that way without knowing.
Which leads us to a conversation on modeling, which I'd like to pick up a little bit later. What does the business model allow you to do, and what does it allow you not to do? And Eddie, it sounds like in your case, you went out there, you got some great business, and then you needed to do it.
Yeah, well,
and it all
yeah, exactly. So we were kind of identified 3 or 4 problems, right? One is, was it the right model? Number 2, since I had gotten all of the business that was available to get, really, then was capturing it all enough product mix? I realized that it was going to stay like this unless something changed, and I can't force more planes in. That's not something I have control over, so I had to expand product mix, is what I ended up doing. And then how much of it was I willing to, the other thing that came about was it was dependent on me, and I set it up that way because I was uniquely qualified, but I needed to make more me's to make it, if it was going to grow into anything else, I needed to make more me's. So there's a whole lot of different lessons that came out of that that I learned sort of the hard way, I would say.
Yeah. And I find that a lot with entrepreneurs, particularly when they're solopreneurs or at that level of solopreneurship, that doesn't make a great model. Your capacity is very limited. You have X amount of time, you have X amount of capacity and ability, and that could be a trap. Now, I get it too. People look, well, when I start expanding and building a staff and doing all of that, I get all of those headaches. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to manage those, but without it, it's a trap. And I consider it one of the most limiting business models, and that's the solopreneur model. And I know, Eddie, for you, with your catering business, from what you've told me, one of your first steps that you did is you actually went out and purchased another business, another catering business.
Well,
so tell us a little bit what that did for you.
Yeah, so the way to expand it was kind of came before me. We're going back and look at it, and what I've advised other people to do as well is somebody who's already very busy and taxed and running at the limit. If they're going to expand it, it's unlikely they're going to be able to do much personal marketing to make that accomplished. Have that accomplished, particularly if it's in a bit of a different market segment. Like, for example, you're either a private aircraft or you're not. So there's nothing that complements it really. So to go out and start something, that maybe is high end would be the closest thing you could say. That required a lot of activity, and there was no way I was going to do that. So the quickest way to get customer base and all that was to buy another company. And that's what I did. I bought another catering company that was sort of in the same end of the market as I did, was because I wanted to utilize product mix as opposed to having one high end and one low end and 2 different inventories and all those things as much as possible. That would have created a bigger mess. So I did buy another company, and that came with some good things, and that came with some challenges as well.
Okay, so now you're serving people in the air, you're serving people on the ground, so that made you working your butt off less, right?
Oh yeah, a lot less, yeah. No way. It really taxed me because, again, not planning for who's going to be the help here. How is all that going to get accomplished, to make the right model and make sure it's priced right. And the way it showed up for me was I did finally hire help, and I immediately saw a whole lot of relief. Just some of the things and some of the burdens that I was doing, I got lifted from me. And because of the way that particular industry is priced, it allows you some flexibility if there's enough traffic. So I was able to hire the first person or two, and I had a little bit of budget to do that. But in the conventional catering business, that's a whole other thing, is planning that away. And I would say, just from my experience, based on other companies, pest control companies, agencies, insurance agencies, you name it, it's the same thing. If they've priced themselves in a position where they're selling a product, if they didn't price it with the expansion in mind, then they never seem to have enough money to add that employee. And that's one of the indicators. You say, well, I can't afford to hire an employee. That might be one of the indicators why not, is because you only priced it figuring on you and not the growth. And you really have to price the growth.
All right. So Eddie, obviously having the budget to build the staff, because there's going to be the hiring, which is an expense, there's going to be the training, which is an expense, and then there's the development about having them work with you. And so you had to have a budget. Was there anything else that was preventing you from making that leap?
Yeah, so if you think about not knowing to plan for the pricing, for example, not knowing to plan for the increase in size of the space you're going to rent, for example, another thing, and product mix and employee matrices and all that stuff, is what was I think the thing that really bit me too was how much was I willing to let go of? You know, and I've heard this one, I said it, and I've heard other people say it too, nobody can do it like me. And yes, that was true, and yes, that was a problem. You know, and I had to get over my own arrogance on that one, because it really is kind of arrogant to think that I'm the only one in the world who could do this. How do they go to all these other cities if I'm the only one in the world who could do this? You know, so I got to get over myself and say, all right, my biggest job now is to create other leaders, other me's. And that was a big leap to come over with, because it's hard to give up your baby. It's not easy to give up something that you kind of raised up from the very beginning and say, all right, you know, now I'm going to trust you with it. You know, because we don't really think that they're going to do better, you know, which is a possibility, by the way. So myself was another hurdle there.
Yeah, I think that's true for a lot of us. It's really getting out of our own way allows the business to go forward. And if we're the one and the only one, and we're the face, and we're the delivering the service or the product, we're standing in the way. And I know from my experience in franchising this company, a lot of times I would think that I'm making the best choices on who I'm selecting. So I already know that we're going to expand this model, we're going to expand this business by franchising, and I'd go out there and say, well, a person's like this and this and this, and I had it all worked out, and then it didn't work out. And still today, you know, a dozen years later doing this, still surprised every day, okay, at how people show up. I mean, there's some obvious times where I'm going to say this will not be a person that will be successful in our model, and that's clear. But many times it was completely not what I expected. People came on board. You know, our friend Ingo, for example, in Italy, he tells the story about us having our first conversation by Skype. And due to short bandwidth, I had to turn off the video. Now he couldn't even read my lips. He didn't understand English anyways. So he just answered the question by yes. Clearly, when he came on board with our language barriers and what we need to overcome, I wasn't seeing a lot of possibilities. Although he's a great man, great character, I knew he was very ambitious. Boy, did he prove us wrong today. I mean, he is expanding our company throughout the country of Italy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's outside the country of Italy soon. And at the same time, I have people saying,
if you look back at what he did, besides get you to say yes to all of it in the end, was what he did right was I don't think he ever intended to do it by himself. It wasn't a solopreneur thing for him. He was always of the mindset that he's got to have a team, he's got to have help, he's going to have to plan for that. So he came in with a little different approach than maybe the way I approached things when I got into it, which was sort of by force. All of a sudden I found myself in a position with a talent, but I had to do something with it, and so I went in and applied it. But it was really about being the talent that did the stuff. Whereas in his case, he knew that he was going to bring people along to do the stuff while he went and built a team of people that could do that. It was just a little bit different approach there that served him better in that way.
You're absolutely correct. And conversely, I see people that come on, even the ones that perform, You know, you light the wick and it fizzes out, they do nothing, or you light the wick and they go up like a rocket.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they come down like a missile.
Yeah. Well, reach capacity.
They come right down. And in many cases, that's because they're going it alone. Eddie, you had a similar situation when you first started. You had a huge community of local business owners that were on a monthly subscription with you. It was almost 100 local business people. And then all of a sudden, not the support, people around you to support a business that big, that many clients.
Well, right. So when I got into this business in the consulting end of things, as opposed to the doing end of things, and we built our business community, yeah, I did, and then quickly realized that I only have a limited capacity. Again, maybe I'm a little more dense than I gave myself credit for, but you know, that I quickly ran out of capacity again because it was an Any model. It need not be an Any model. So I would say to anyone who's out there working their butt off, did you build a model that was built around you, first off? And if that's the case, then you're going to be at capacity pretty quick. And it's good in the beginning because, yeah, money's coming in and this and that. But the second you go over that one or two people, that makes it where it's past your capacity to handle them, well, now you just understood where your limit was. And if you're in a position, for example, to be a solopreneur where you plan, you like it that way, and you plan, you save money, and you put it away, then good luck, fine. But if you want to really grow a business, then if it's on you, that's going to be your capacity. And that's what happened again to me. And then I found out for sure that that one, we were just trying to find a way to make it work. I didn't really have it priced right. So I needed to adjust again to compensate for what I didn't plan for in the beginning. So the pricing bit me in that model.
You know, when you're talking about capacity, I think that's an important part for a business owner to truly be able to evaluate. Because when we're really busy, we feel like we're at capacity. And in reality, we're just really busy. You know, the fortunate thing today is we're in the age of information. And the age of information can also clutter our business and clutter our life. So much so that I watch some people they complicate their business, they complicate things to the point where they're already overwhelmed before they're ever even near capacity. And I know, for example, in your catering company, we've talked about this in the past, where sometimes it's just one big whale, one client that fills your capacity, which was the case for you. So tell us how that became a trap in you getting to the next level.
Yeah, so when I did expand from private aircraft catering into another end of it, Harrah's Casino was opening up here locally in New Orleans. And when they first opened up, they did not have the right or the ability or the license to do their own food. Now, imagine that. This is one of the largest casinos in the world, certainly the largest physical space casino in the United States. And they couldn't do their own foods, which meant they had to bring in outside vendors. Well, eventually I got to a point where I had also gotten all the food orders for the casino, save the buffet. So all their private parties, all their New Year's things, so I was there every day for 365, you know, all holidays, whatever, delivering food and doing all the things I needed to do to service that client. Well, they were sudden. This is Harrah's Casino, so you can imagine the capacity they have. So all of a sudden, this smaller catering business or specialized catering business was slammed. And so yes, I did have a lot of people working, we were getting it done, but here's what happens then, is you got a great client, and now by the time they want you to invoice them every 30 days. So you invoice them at the end of 30, they take 2 weeks to process or 3 weeks to process, another week to get you to check, and you're 60 days out. Now, I'm financing Harrah's Casino's food operation for 60 days. What do you think my chances were with that one? Okay, so now I have to start paying finance charges on things that I, borrowed, or, vendors I got to give me the same types of terms. You pay the finance charges and all that, and it really starts to eat up into those percentages of profits. So a big client can choke you. And what happened also as well is, since we were so consumed, and I knew this was going to come to an end because, the kitchens they had there were amazing, and they didn't build those for no reason. So a couple of 3 years later, of course, they finally pressured the legislature to give it to them, and now I spent all my time and resource working this client, but I couldn't get out enough to go market the things I needed to take advantage of what I had, because this whale was eating up everything every resource that I had. I was not able to market like I wanted to. We did come out on the other side, but a whale can consume you, and you know that there's a good chance that it's not going to last forever. It might last a long time, and it's great, just like this did. But I knew it was going to happen. I still couldn't do anything about it because they consumed us so much. We were so busy that we weren't able to get out and market something complementary alongside of it.
Yeah, there's a business model set up with all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, exactly. And not a good thing there. Yeah.
That can certainly be a trap. In many cases, they could also, on their side, see that they're holding all the cards, and so sometimes they can push a little harder than they might naturally deal with if they weren't in that.
Right. So some lessons there were, number one, I was actually pretty good at bringing business in the door. What I needed was a professional advisor, like an accountant that was in the industry, for example, to show me where the money's coming and going and what's really going on, like what the real financial picture is. I would say the contractors would be the same way. For example, if they're got a couple of houses going and they're big high dollar houses and they're using up a lot of money in credit lines, making sure that everything gets applied to the right one, so you know which one you made money on and how much it really costs, so you can actually understand where your sweet spot in the market is, which was another thing that came out of it all. But I would say, to have somebody who understands those numbers and how it's really working out is very important, because it goes back to I was busy, there was money coming through the door, and the whole time there was a debt piling up that eventually would get paid, because the money was like a snowball. It would eventually come, but could I outlast it? Would I have access to enough funds as they continued to use more and more of my money? That was something I needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
Which kept me.
Yeah, so
kept me still.
We talking people in, getting out of our way. I've talked about capacity. I'd like to talk a little bit about scalability, duplication. And one of the first places I see that as an opportunity is multi-unit, opening up a second location, opening up a second office. I know, Nanette, you have a client there in Cincinnati who's recently done that. I had a chance to meet with him last year in Cincinnati. Tell us a little bit about his story.
So his story is he is a restaurateur. His name is Alfio Giulisano, and he came to this country wanting to find the American dream and started literally from the bottom up. And he started working at a restaurant in New York City, and I have to tell you just one quick cute story about Alfio is that when he first started working for that restaurateur there, they were paying him $8 an hour. And he thought that was so much money that he said to the owner, "This is too much money, so you need to drive your car around to the front and I will wash your car every week for you." Well, that work ethic took him far. And to make a longer story short, he ended up opening a restaurant here in Cincinnati in Hyde Park called Alfio's. And he actually did it with partners. He didn't have a lot of money and told the partners that he had the concept, he had the idea. And so he told them, he said, "The thing I have a lot to give you is sweat equity." And so he started out with that by giving them the sweat equity and putting in there. And he started this restaurant. And we have this thing here every year called the Taste of Cincinnati. And it's been going on, at that point, it had been going on up to 36 years. This was about 3 years ago, so now we're almost into the 40th year. But Alfio's restaurant participated in that contest. And so there are 3 big things you can win. Best appetizer, best entree, and best dessert. And in the 36-year history, he was the only one who ever swept all 3 categories. But here's the thing, Mike, and it goes back to what you were talking about, duplication. When he and I started working together, he said to me, "My dream is to be bigger than Bobby Flay." And I said to him, "Well, you have to start to think about this, because Bobby Flay is not at every one of those restaurants. So you have to find a way that your restaurants are going to be successful even if you are not there." And then he told me later on that the food that won that event, he did not prepare any of that food. And maybe I shouldn't be telling the whole world this right now, but he did not prepare any of this food. His people are so good that those places run seamlessly when he's not there. So with that, what happened was that he started talking, and he learned what he took the skills he learned through us, and he went on and he started looking for someone else, and he found another guy. And this other guy, we have this other area here called Over the Rhine. It's up and growing. And again, he said the same thing. He said, look, I don't have a lot of money, but I have a lot of sweat equity. And the guy said, okay. So they opened a second restaurant, actually called Shea, in Over the Rhine, and that restaurant was grossing more revenue in 9 months than the other restaurant had in 3 years. So it was just all that knowledge and going. And what I just found out, the really exciting thing is he's opening his third. So
there you go.
It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's I love hearing stories like that. To me, when you get to expand like that with multi-units, multi-level like that, that to me is the type of business model I want to be involved in. But also what you mentioned in that about him partnering, willing to partner with other people. Right? Now, I'm as much of a control freak as probably anyone on this webinar, certainly as much as Nanette and Eddie. I'm a control freak. And I am completely in when it comes to partnerships. Eddie and I have had a partnership for 10 years now. I certainly love having a partnership with him, but I even like the idea of partnering with people that are good people. And I don't need to partner with people just because of money. I like partnering with people because we complement one another and we have a common goal. And so seeing that this happen in the restaurant business is even more exciting to me. And by the way, I got to have dinner at his restaurant.
And the fact that he's taking and duplicating it with even other partners, I mean, it's just genius. He's really done a great job.
Yeah, I mean, Mike and I consider ourselves on parole from the restaurant world, so work release or something. In fact, that's a tough one. And but the location, he's right. The locations are a way. So, to recap some of the things that we kind of put out there and see if any questions come in. If you are working and you're stuck and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, not going to that next level, some of the things that we've said today are, maybe it's the wrong pricing model. Maybe that's part of the deal. Are there things that you could let go of? Is it time to buy another company? Is it time to maybe open another location? Those are some of the things that will open the doors for you. I think throw one else out there, Mike. It's something that maybe you've been saying no to that's complementary or residual. And one of the things that we like to look, we consider it, is there something out there that can be done easily online or an extra sale when someone's in the store or the shop that they can just pick up this extra. I know in an automotive shop, for example, if people walk in and pick up the car and they can buy another $10 or $12 item, windshield wiper blades, whatever it is, those extra sales all day long add up to a whole lot. There's something under your nose that could complement what you're doing, because that could put you to the next feed, to the next strata. And let's say one other thing that I noticed with a computer guy that I was working with in Ireland, actually, he was charging the same amounts of money for doing work in his office as he was for going to the site. And so just by putting I don't want to call it delivery fee, but just a travel fee, if you would, it made a huge difference, because 25 euro wasn't stopping them from ordering the service, but when he counted up how many he did in a week, it added up to thousands a month. And that right there helped him get into the next level of hiring that help that he needed. So some of those things are there, or you're sitting on something right now that would be the revenue you need. Can you do it, and can you get over the fear of doing it? Because in this guy's case, he was afraid that it was going to cost him. It was going to cause him to lose customers. When in fact, when you're having people come to your place, that's probably not 20, 25 euros is not going to be the thing that throws you off. So in his case, it worked really quite well for him.
I like what you're saying, Eddie, too, about making it easy for people to say yes. Mm-hmm. Finding other ways that you engage with them. And that's one of the traps I've been in over the years, is I've limited, listen, this is the level of service we provide. It is a franchise, and it has to all be done this way. Like I said before, people surprise me all the time. And in many cases, I look at that model, that approach as being the sales prevention department.
Right.
Ask them what they need and give it to them. If providing is going to be a benefit to them and not hurt them or their business, okay, ask them what they want and give it to them. And I think that's one of the big mind shifts that we as an organization and you and I are really focusing on now is, let's meet them where they are, give them what they want, okay, and then move them to the next level.
Well, Mike,
so obviously, we are in the franchising business. We've been doing this for a number of years, okay? But the first to come out here and say it's not the only way, okay? There's many benefits that you get in franchising. There are also some downsides also, starting with the whole idea of a franchise is everyone doing the same thing the same way. And one of the things I'll tell you about consulting is nobody does the same thing the same way.
No, everybody wants to McDonald's. In a hamburger, you get the 1, 2, 3. Well, it's not a hamburger. So no way to do it. Which brings up, Mike. So, we talked a lot about restaurants and places that are, I would say, like business to consumer, people coming through the door or whatever in this particular case. What about agencies? Insurance agencies, financial planners. What are some of the things that you see when you deal with them?
Actually, that in a different way. I'm not sure I caught the question.
Yeah, so we've been talking about what keeps people stuck, and we were talking about businesses that have more of a consumer come through the door component to it, as opposed to say like a financial planner who's kind of working in a more agency type relationship. How do they grow? How do they expand? What are some of the things you say that you've seen that keeps them stuck at a level and not moving through that level?
Well, I think it starts at the very beginning where they are the product and service, if you would. They are the one the engine to go out there and get the business. They're the ones that are going to provide the consultation with the clients. They're the ones that have to do an enormous amount of paperwork. And it starts with releasing some of those maybe administrative duties that are not necessarily profitable but necessary. Okay, so that allows them more capacity. But ultimately, for them to really create an organization, they need duplication on all levels. And one of the biggest time sucker because it's very necessary, but one of the biggest black holes in those service positions is marketing and sales. And so bringing people in that could help you with your duplication of marketing and selling becomes a critical component. And that could be all the way up to partnering, okay, but certainly building a team of other advisors that are going out there doing what you do, okay, but doing it within their networks creates a more stable organization.
Yeah. What I've noticed with some of the agents is they rely on, or the agency types, I should say, financial planners, brokers, things like people like that, more one-to-one type sales, I guess, is they rely on too heavily on one type of marketing. And if there are other channels that can complement that one, typically they rely on referrals or something, or personal introductions, they would say, or some call it networking. But there are complementary channels that work for that. And if they're only operating one channel, just by opening up another channel or two of marketing can make a big difference in the number of people that come, that they're able to contact with, to do business with, that will push them to the next level. So I find oftentimes it's just a lack of extra, I don't want to call it extra thing, but a complete marketing plan. Because if you think about, relationship marketing, again, you only have so much time, so there's only so much you can do, and you can only maintain those other relationships to a certain degree. Now, it can be good for a lot, but there are other types of marketing that if you complemented that with it, now you're starting to get extra prospects, you're starting to get more people come through the door, and they, capitalize on the referrals they may bring you as well. So I find sometimes it's a limited number of ways they're being marketed.
Yeah, and that Eddie, of course, it leverages your marketing just as much as it leverages your business. It leverages your marketing where all of those marketing vehicles are complementary. Okay, but they work in coordination with each other, not separate messages and stuff. They work in unison, and like I said, with all of those channels opened up, is again more leads coming into the business, more opportunities. Connecting with more people on many different levels. Even relationship marketing is a scalable model. We leverage relationships by forming networks. So those are made to make to bring back time to the business owner. That's why I would look at those marketing vehicles.
Yeah. So we've identified, the price. Is it a pricing thing maybe that's keeping you where you are, or a lack of ability to let go? The maybe not enough marketing channels are turned on. The other things about duplication and buying another company. Might be time to do one of those things. And I really think it kind of comes down to is, do you have, Ivan Meisner told this a lot of times, did you draw out an organizational chart, for example? And one of the exercises we do when we draw out our organizational chart is, here are the people I'd like to have around me. This is what my organization looks like. And then start putting numbers by them. How much do they cost? And write that down to help you with some of the, the model and where you should be and what kind of marketing you may need to do. It helps if you got a good picture of what it's going to look like when you get where you think you want to go. That way you can plan for it and not have it just happen to you.
Which leads to the next thing is what is the business model that's going to create the most opportunity for you? In the beginning of the session, we talked about what I consider the least productive model, and that's the solopreneur.
Yeah.
We only have so much time, and we only have so much capacity, and we can only charge so much for our service. That's a cap. And in many cases, if anything should happen to that entrepreneur, that solopreneur, the business doesn't even exist anymore in many cases. So, let's talk a little bit about that. I know we've talked about it in our coaching and consulting business of moving away from an eat what you kill and having clients on a more long-term or permanent basis. So touch on those model opportunities for businesses.
Well, that's what I was kind of talking about a little bit. Is there something out there that people could subscribe to? Is there something that you have a deliverable that's online, for example? So when you're thinking about those things, if you look at our business, when we can approach it in different ways. So as a coaching consulting operation, some of the ways that we can build our model are to have individual type sessions, group type sessions, programs that we partner with other people with. We help them fill their programs, or they help us fill our programs, and we have a revenue share going. Intellectual property like books or downloadables that could be out there being marketed by our web world, that magical web world that's out there. But we can diversify into a model that's not based on one thing. It's got multiple ways that people could say yes, and multiple people that we can involve with us that can partner in to those things. That can either be selling things on our behalf or be commissioned or whatever, because it's good for them to put people in our programs. Networks are a good thing if there's something that people could belong to and get a consistent value that's predictable, that not the one that has to deliver it all the time. So it's just about taking every aspect of what it is you do and then seeing how it could service the clientele you want. I think from an entry level all the way to a master level. So different pricings for people to get into and maybe to cut back to as well. So I think it's a mix for us in the consulting world, just a mix of different opportunities like that make for a good business model. Now we won't choose, I wouldn't personally choose all of those, but I might choose 3 or 4 of them, and that becomes my business model. So, but it wouldn't be one thing. One thing is a sure way, I believe, unless you got long legs, that's going to get you trapped into not having enough diversity to make it something you don't have to kill what you eat all the time. What's been your experience with that, Mike?
We really, that's really how we started. We were an eat what you kill. We would do trainings, phenomenal trainings, and we still do.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a matter of going out there and marketing and selling and filling a class and rocking and rolling their world in a workshop. And then we were out marketing and selling in the next workshop. And it wasn't until a few years later we're looking at it saying, well, we weren't even looking at the model at this point. We were simply looking at is this the total solution for the client? And clearly it wasn't. We had given them great insights and great knowledge, but keeping them engaged to do the work, to actually execute it, and because of the relationship marketing focus, has to take responsibility for their referral network and help them work more productively together, that changed our model. Now all of a sudden we were taking clients and we were staying with them long term. As a matter of fact, that model was introduced over 10 years ago, and we have clients today that started with us 10 years ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, the long term play is the big deal there. Is, you know, I see it in website and graphic design people all the time. Is they build a website and they're looking for the next website to build. That's okay. That's a component of it. But if there's not some, can there be a feature, for example, that is an ongoing subscription for updates or for who knows what? But if you could figure out something there where there's a predictable amount of revenue coming that you don't have to go kill it that month, that's good for everybody, including the customer, because you made it easy. So how many opportunities are in our businesses, graphic design, agencies, trainers and consultants, whatever it is, even restaurants, for example, you know, what is it out there that could be, people could buy into or subscribe to if they want to, that would be one piece of revenue. That's not something you have to go out and kill every day. And I would suggest that if you look hard enough, there's probably one there.
You know, Eddie, when I was in the restaurant business, one of my vendors was doing that with us. If you run restaurants, you almost every week have a plumber coming in, an HVAC person. It's just tons of breakdowns. And my HVAC company came to me and approached us, listen, I'll do a subscription model. You're going to pay X amount a month, but more than coming here and just repair things, we're going to take an approach of preventive maintenance. And the more we can prevent things from breaking down, the better off you are, and the more profitable it will be for us. Now, I already knew how much money I was spending annually on services, so it was easy to put that together. But from the HVAC company's point of view, this is residual ongoing income. He doesn't have to worry if I'm going to jump across and bring somebody else in or go somewhere else. He had me as a long-term client.
Right.
And the key is, it's not even the business you're taking in. It's what you save in client acquisition costs. It would cost us the same amount to eat what you chew with a client as it would to take a client and keep it them long term. Same expense coming in, much greater return going out.
Yeah, the eat what you kill model is definitely a sure way to. It's a risky way, and it's a good way to stay where you are, because let's face it, you know, we all go through ups and downs, and our economies go through ups and downs. And that residual or that subscription stuff, the maintenance, as you just called it, which can apply to so many places, could be the thing that just props you up during some of those lesser months. I know in like summer times are not good for some, you know, for some industries and great for others. In winter's bad. And so if you had subscription money coming in the winter, it kind of smooths out those bumps and allows you to, you know, do other things, to market like you're supposed to, or you know, continue to get that income stream to support all the things that you're putting in place. So, you know, another thing, if you're considered at a level, stuck at a level, is there something that somebody is there something that you can provide a value that could be on a basis there? You don't have to go sell it every month. They bought it for the year, or they bought it at least for the quarter or something like that. That could make a huge difference in your bottom line.
Excellent. Well, in that, we've had a conversation about working your butt off and feel like you're not getting anywhere. We've talked about scalability, models, getting yourself out of the way, watching out for the whale trap. Are there any questions from our audience we can quickly answer before we finish up the show?
Well, I don't see any here, but if you have one, audience, please type it in real quick here so we can get it in before we go to backstage. But I will say, Mike, that I heard a couple of things, and one of my questions that came for both of you was, so you have that person who just feels like they're in their own way. What's the first step you would say they should take to just take that step to get out of their own way?
Well, first of all, when they're stuck, I want to know one thing. Are they stuck and staying still, or are they stuck and getting sucked into the quicksand? Right? So if they feel like they're stuck and getting, you know, when you find yourself digging yourself into a hole, stop digging. All right? So that's number one. Let's stop, okay, and reassess. And then my other point of it is find an outside person, find a consultant that can look at your situation with the clarity of distance. Be able to evaluate what you're doing, where you're going, and be able to coach you around getting to the next level and what your next steps want to be. Eddie?
Yeah, I would say one other thing that came to mind for me is don't eliminate as a solution some of the things that you have going on at home either. So, for example, if you're overwhelmed and stuck in a little bit, your time is strapped to the max, like I described earlier for myself. One of the things that I did was I just hired out some of the things. Let me back up. I didn't think I could hire an employee at the time, for example, and although I didn't actually know if I could or I couldn't, which was a problem. But what I did was I hired someone to come clean the house, someone to cut the grass, someone to do some of the other things, because hours are hours. So if I got to spend hours doing those things, or hours, marketing or working at the business just to get through this piece, don't discount the hours at home. I kind of grew up with that thing about you don't have people cut your grass. That's just, you don't do that. You don't have people cleaning your house. Who do you think you are? That's kind of how I grew up. So I hesitated. But then when I did it, I realized how much less stress it was, how much better it was to go home, because I didn't have to go work again. So don't discount the things that are happening that are around you that aren't in the business that may be eating up some of that time as well. I think that's a very important piece of it too.
And really, the initial first step is just get out of your own way. Find that brave moment and just take that step.
Yeah, and get help. I mean, if you can say, well, I am the problem, which a lot of the times that you or I was, then right. Yeah, to think that you're going to be the one who fixes it, it's probably not a good idea either, because you just multiplied the problem, because you're the one who got you there in the first place. So get some help with clarity of distance, as Mike said.
Well, we are a little bit over. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time today. For those of you that are with us, we're not done. We still have until 1 o'clock backstage. So if you have questions, stay with us, because we'd love to talk with you off camera and just to find out what you need and how we can help you. So Mike, Eddie, thank you very much. Come back and join us next month, March 16th, same time. We're going to be talking about scalability. Are you thinking that your business needs to scale up or scale down? That is an issue that a lot of people have. We've kind of touched on it today, and we'll touch on it a lot on March 16th. If you like what you saw, please share this. We'd love to help more entrepreneurs all over the world. Thank you very much. Remember, we're creating an amazing business and a spectacular life. Have a great day. Oops.